Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel, Be Sublime here. I want to start off with the question that I posed in my intro video. One for all or all for one? Now, I asked you guys to translate the superhero dilemma into layman's terms. So before we jump in, don't forget to like my video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notifications bell, and join my Facebook page too. All right, there'll be a lot more jumping there. Let's go ahead and get started, you guys. Don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you give up, no. One response that I received basically talked about living on the one for all side in their personal life, basically saying that they were sacrificing themselves to be there for other people and to fill their needs compared to their own. And I mean, I could totally relate to that. I was there for a lot of my life as well. And it took me losing almost everything before the all for one perspective even had a practical stance worth applying for me. It forced me to really sit there and question, like, is it okay for me to say no? When is it right to say no? When is it right to remove myself from toxicity around me and to just be willing to care for myself first? Now, no matter how we ask the question, we understand that in the superhero's case, they're having to distinguish between a right or wrong in some sort. It applies for us as well. In their case, for example, it might be morally right not to kill a villain, okay? But it's also possible that you'd be preventing catastrophes and saving tons more people if you actually eliminated the villain instead, you know? To some, the death of one for the survival of many is really a more humane answer. So I decided to look it up, okay? When I looked up the word right in Google, this is what was returned to me. Now, in a nutshell, morally good, justified, or acceptable is the gist of most of the definitions, okay? Also, those definitions are actually popping up before the directional term, like to the right or going right. So what does it mean to you to be right? I mean, when you think about it in your mind, does it absolve you from fault or punishment or karma because you're right? Does you being right justify how you treat other people? Does it equate to the power that you exert over others? Or does it provide you with a certain type of satisfaction or high? Does it stroke your ego? Now, if you answer yes to any of those four questions, think about the feelings that it gives you when you're right and compare them to when you're wrong. Now, does it sting? Are you angry? Can you accept it? How long does it take for you to return to your normal self? Now, I'm asking these questions because many people are willing to make all kinds of assumptions and draw all kinds of conclusions. And they do this about everything. Even the things that they know nothing about or haven't witnessed, they're not a part of it. They have no stake in it. And they haven't took the time to research anything about it. Then, when they're brought enough information to challenge their perspective, they respond in a variety of ways. Now, some are good, but some are bad. Now, some can adopt a new school of thought because they've learned something new, so they incorporate it as best they can. Some ignore it, some denounce it. You know, some will agree or agree to disagree in love and peace. But there are others that will fight you tooth and nail until their perspective takes root and gains dominance as the right perspective. Now, the thing is, concepts of right and wrong are taught. This is not something that's encoded in our DNA at conception or at birth. These are learned. They're taught. And while there's usually a general consensus about what's right or wrong, there's also a plethora of differing views within the same opinion. And that leaves room for the question of who or what is right in a given situation. We believe we know because of religion or spirituality or experience or, book knowledge. But what if we're wrong? Is it okay to be not sure or unsure? Is it okay to not be the person to make that call? Let's look at some scenarios below and consider a few things, all right? Here's scenario 1. A male and a female are arguing in a parking lot, going at it. Now the male starts to walk away, but ends up being followed and harassed by the female. He turns and addresses her. She pushes him. He waves her off and turns to walk away. She screams at him and goes around him to block his path. Now at this point, he sternly but softly tells her to move out the way. Instead, she starts yelling and rolling her neck and talking with her hands and all of that stuff. By this point now, they face to face. So he closes his eyes, takes a deep breath and said, look, move out of my way. I ain't got time for this. Move. Instead, she cusses at him and slaps him in the face. Now he connects with one punch because he done snapped now. So he punches her. She falls to the floor. He yells something incoherently and he turns around to leave. Now to some people, he should have never hit her under any circumstance, even in the situation I just told you about. But to others, there are exceptions to the rule, just like the situation I just told you about. There are also those who believe that if you want to stand there and get up in a man's face and fight like a man, then don't get mad when you get beat like one, and vice versa. So everybody needs to keep their hands to themselves because everybody has a right to defend themselves. Now, who's right and who's wrong? All right, now let's try another one. Scenario 2. A woman is divorcing her spouse. The reason? Irreconcilable differences. Now, the spouse is abusive, financially destructive, and unwilling to contribute to the security or the well-being of the home. But this spouse will give her hell if she filed abuse as the reason for the divorce. So they're going with irreconcilable differences. Now, it's rumored that she cheated on them and abandoned and neglected her family, as the spouse is airing out all the dirty laundry all over social media, but painting himself as the perfect spouse, undeserving of his troubles. Now, the proof of him abusing her pretty much goes unheard, except by those who are able to witness the carnage personally. Those who shared social networks with both spouses didn't check into the situation to learn anything of the other side. The spouse also refused to visit their children. Now, no one is really listening as the spouse works to break the woman with everything that he has. And the misinformation is so bad that the woman goes into hiding to clear her name. Now, eventually the divorce goes through, but it kind of forces her to accommodate him. It doesn't protect her the way she needs it to. Now, here in the court of public opinion, they're going to have their view of the situation, typically bashing the wife because of what they were given and supporting the spouse, continuing and exaggerating the rumors. But they're never going to have the inclination to go and check out the other side or investigate for themselves, even the ones that had the ability to do so. Then you got the spouses. They each have their own perspectives, and those who have witnessed it have their own view of the same situation. But whose view is right and whose is wrong? Now here's scenario 3. A high schooler, let's call him Jack. He gets into it with another student. Now when classes are over, he heads home. On the way home, Jack notices that he's being followed by a group of students, led by the one he had issues with earlier. So he phones home, speaks to his dad about the situation. His dad is worried, so he tells him, well, come to the house. I'm already here. Now, upon arrival to the house, Jack goes inside as his dad instructed him to do. His dad is standing in the doorway. Now, as the gaggle of boys come closer, he gets to see that some of them actually have weapons on them. And that's what his dad was worried about. So the dad yells from the door not to come any closer to their home. since he would gladly even up the fight with weapons of his own, thinking that it'll scatter them and they'll go on home. Well, they decided to move forward anyway. So Dad sets off around into the air as his warning shot and told his son to call the police and explain the situation, while warning the other kids, next time I'm not gonna miss. Y'all need to leave. Instead of leaving, these kids decided to run up on him anyway, so he shot them, wounding a few, one critically. The kids got freaked out, especially with the ones that were wounded, so they picked them up, carried them, put them in the car, and drove off to the hospital. Now, the one that was critically injured died en route, and the dad was charged with murder. Now, this is a tragic situation that did not have to happen in the first place, but here it is. Who's right and who's wrong in this situation? Now, these are just 3 examples of many situations that are going to happen in this life. And these situations can have people ready to draw blood over who's right and who's wrong. Oftentimes, they're willing to fight over it, cut off their friends and family over it, and they don't even have a stake in the situation. Now, if you have such a reaction to things that don't concern you, you might need to isolate yourself and do some digging within. We need to be able to understand where that reaction comes from, what it triggers or what triggers it, and what we need to do to release it, because we should not be part of an environment that is able to control our thoughts and our feelings that way. We shouldn't want that for ourselves. To some, there's no such thing as right or wrong, or a better way to say it is what's right or wrong is relative to each person and situation. So, what may be right for you may not be right for me. And because they know this, it allows them to have an opinion while remaining detached from the situation, because it's not theirs to have anyway. And it keeps them from having a disruptive reaction. Now, that may be irrelevant to some, but here's something you want to consider. Every situation is different and unique. Now, even though we're all made of the same stuff, molecularly speaking. Now, there's nothing new under the sun, but the details of our lives differ, like probabilities in math. We can all experience loss, and in some way, shape, or form we will. But the probability that you'll experience it through losing people, through death, may be different through job loss or loss of self-worth, etc. Even within death. There are endless possibilities of who'd be lost and how, along with how it would have, what kind of effect it would have on you. Now, by virtue of the first 2 points, what's right for you may not be right for me, and vice versa. So do we really need to be right, or does it really only matter when it involves us? How important is being right? Can we survive being on the learning end of life without our world collapsing around us? Or does it have to take calamity to admit that we're wrong about something, whether in perspective or otherwise? Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is something that we can address as individuals. And if we do so, we can start having dialogues and coming together for our betterment as a whole. But knowing that our individual opinions may not be as important as the collective issues that we face. Thanks for watching. Don't you